My name is Jessica Cooney, and I'm studying for my PhD in archaeology at the University of Cambridge. I've been interested in archaeology ever since I was a little girl. I was fascinated by trying to imagine what people's lives were like hundreds and thousands of years ago. That's what led me to my current research on prehistoric cave art. My goal is to learn more about the people who decorated these amazing caves and determine if children were also prehistoric artists. I work in a French cave called Rouffignac in the Vézère Valley in the Dordogne region. This area is well known for its Paleolithic archaeology and art. UNESCO has designated the 25 decorated caves here as a World Heritage Site. The type of art I study is called finger flutings. Finger flutings are marks made by people in the soft walls and ceilings of caves. Some caves, like Rouffignac, have walls covered in clay and moon milk, a white substance which oozes out of limestone. People pressed or dragged their hands through the clay and moon milk, leaving the impressions of their fingers. Sometimes they did it standing still, making shapes, pictures of animals, anthropomorphic figures, or the symbolic images found in this region called tectiforms. Other times, they were making the flutings as they walked through a chamber. We found continuous flutings more than 2 meters long. Both children and adults made the flutings. We often find children's flutings in high places that they would not have reached without help. Rouffignac is a massive cave. There are 3 levels, and only the top level has art. This top level alone has chambers with a combined area of about 5 square kilometers, with the furthest parts of the cave about a 45-minute walk from the entrance. There are flutings in most chambers. We find that children made flutings everywhere, even in the deepest places. There are also places where children did most of the flutings. We sometimes think of one chamber as a playpen of sorts, since there are hundreds of children's flutings, but only a few made by adults. The way we distinguish between flutings made by children and adults is by using a methodology measuring the width of the flutings, which gives us the size of the fingers. This technique was developed by Dr. Leslie Van Gelder and the late Dr. Kevin Sharp. Leslie is the director of the finger fluting project in Rouffignac. She and Kevin discovered that the width of a person's 3 middle fingers can be used to distinguish between different people. They took the measurements of thousands of people of all ages and also found that people with a 3-fingered width of 34 millimeters or less were definitely children aged 7 or under. This gave us the proof needed to look at the individual people who made the flutings. Leslie and Kevin found that it is sometimes possible to tell the fluter's gender if the top profiles of the flutings are clear. It was just 5 years ago that they were able to prove that many of the fluters were women and children. Leslie and Kevin were also the first to discover that children were involved in symbolic image making, as the methodology proved that some of the tectiforms were made by children. There are thousands of flutings throughout Rouffignac. In our latest trip, Leslie and I were able to show, using the methodology, that most of the measurable flutings were made by a small group of people, only 8 or 10 in all. 4 of these people were children. The youngest child was about 2 or 3 years old. We also found that there was a 5 or 6-year-old girl and a 7-year-old girl. The most prolific fluter in Rouffignac is a girl about 5 years old. Her flutings can be found everywhere in the cave, often really high up in places over 2 meters high. In 2006, Leslie and Kevin discovered that the 5-year-old girl made a tectiform in one of the farthest reaches of the cave, making her the youngest prehistoric person we know of to have made a symbolic image. I find it intensely exciting to work in the cave. The sense of getting close to the kids and adults who lived so long ago is indescribable. They become people, not just marks on the wall. The cave itself is an environment unlike any other. Once you are out of sight of the door, there's no natural light. When your torch is turned off, you cannot even see your hand in front of your face. The ground is rocky and covered in cave bear pits where they used to hibernate during the winter. These giant bears went extinct around 20,000 years ago, but have definitely left their mark on the cave. While much of the cave is spacious, the farther into the earth you go, the smaller it becomes. To get to one of the back chambers, we had to crawl for about 10 minutes. Even though this research is a scientific venture, I've become emotionally invested in the people in the cave. since I have the privilege of telling their story. Some of the places we explore to find flutings haven't been visited by people in over 20 years. In fact, there may be areas that have only been visited by about 30 people in the last 30,000 years. To go to places that so few have ever seen is simply amazing. For archaeologists, fieldwork is a vital aspect of research. In my case, there's only so much information that can be gleaned from a book or a picture on a computer screen. The Flutings in the cave is a three-dimensional world. The whole settings, from the bumpy surfaces to the muddy floors and the lack of light, must be experienced firsthand in order to understand how the flutings were made. The only way to find out how and where a person would have stood or sat to make the flutings, and even if they made them with their left or right hand, or sometimes both at once, is to follow in the prehistoric people's footsteps. What's the point, you might ask? Cave art is often seen as one of the signs that our Homo sapiens ancestors had truly evolved into humans. Whether or not you ascribe to that, I believe that by understanding the evolution of our common humanity, we learn more about ourselves. Children in today's society occupy very distinct spaces and roles which have, in many cases, been artificially created to separate them from the real world that adults live and experience. I think it is important to realize that children played a major role in the development of not only art, but perhaps what it means to be human.